Hello, everyone. Welcome to our information session on the upcoming proposed changes to importer of record requirements in the USA. My name is Amanatidis. I'm the Director of Marketing here at Navia. I'm joined by our Head of Customs and Trade Compliance, Lowell DeFrance. Lowell, thank you for joining us.
Hi, I'm good to be here. Thanks, Greg.
There's a lot going on. So I myself, like I said to you before we started recording this, I saw these changes and I said, well, there's a lot. Even I'm struggling to put this together. So let's start off with maybe what's actually happened and why is it important? What's the importance of it?
Yes, there is a lot going on. Right now, to be clear, it's just a proposed rule-making change.
Okay.
We have 180 days, and the specifics aren't out, but there were quite a lot of specifics listed in the order here to give to customs to they strengthen customs enforcement is what they called it.
So sorry, this is an order, an executive order requiring Customs and Border Protection to make the requested or review the requested proposed changes that were in the order. Is that right?
Yeah, it's them
Yeah.
to come up with rules. It's an order to the customs to come up with rules to strengthen the import of record and other
Okay.
requirements with customs.
Yep.
Then the largest one right now is, of course, import of record. And there's two sections of import of records that they're looking at. They're looking at the actual domestic import of record and the foreign import of record. The U.S. has currently some pretty liberal foreign import of record laws, allows foreign companies to import into the U.S. and ship to companies within the U.S. and pay their own duties and do everything like that. The new changes for domestic importers of record are also quite significant. They basically want a much more stronger vetting process of the import of records. They're asking for ownership and more documentation up front, which probably will have to be collected by the customs broker. They're looking for information about when the company was formed. They want to have who the owners are. They want to have it all listed out. They want to have more information on that, and they want to restrict the foreign import of record to dealing only with brokers that are CTPAT or to become CTPAT themselves. And they also want to get the same kind of information about who the owners are and who the ownership of those companies are. And they also are talking about if they don't feel comfortable with that foreign import of record, not allowing them to buy continuous bonds. And for the
Right.
domestic import of records, they're talking about expanding or increasing basically the amount of bonds, the amount of surety. They're also looking at linking like the import of record up with fixed assets in the U.S. in case, it doesn't pay customs duties. They can go after fixed assets or something like that. And it's quite confusing with that.
So just so I get this straight, what's the current requirement of being an importer? Let's go back to that. What's it like currently?
Currently, if you want to be an importer of the record in the U.S., you just have to form a company or you can actually do it yourself as an individual. You can form a company in any one of the 50 states. You have to then apply for a federal taxpayer ID number and you can become an importer of record.
Okay.
After that, it's also very simple to buy a continuous bond to lower your costs for single entry bonds and import goods using a bond. There's also talk in informal entries, which are entries under $2,500, typically don't need a bond, but they're talking about eliminating the informal entry process entirely as well,
Okay.
requiring a bond and everything.
Right. And when you said foreign importer of record, does that mean that you can be an importer of record while not having a US entity, or you still need a US entity to do that?
Right. No, foreign importer of record would be an importer of record that doesn't have any presence in the US.
Okay. Yeah.
Typically to set up a foreign import of record, it's the same thing. You would go to the customs, you would you have your customs broker fill out a 5106, you would assign them power of attorney, you would waive your right to service. So you would accept service to your customs broker. So if they wanted to legally serve your broker, it would be the same thing as serving you. That's something most people don't understand about the legal process of lawsuits is the importance of service. So you would set that up and you could ask customs for a customs assign number. With that customs assign number, you would be able to import into the US without actually physically being in the US. You only have to
Gotcha.
tell them where you're sending your cargo to, the continent you're
Okay.
sending your cargo to.
Okay. Now, so that's the current, and then obviously the proposed changes. They're looking to expand on the requirements to those. What
Yes, they're
kind of
looking.
business are they targeting here? What, is this going to impact everyone, or is it a certain customer type that this would impact?
It seems like it's probably going to more affect small businesses because they're
Okay.
looking for tangible assets, not just offices and employees. So they also want to report to customs. Customs is supposed to collect information on tangible assets of that company. And then they might require higher bonding amounts for importers who don't have a high amount of tangible assets
Okay.
in the US. And it also might target foreign import of records and have a lot more onerous requirements and bonding requirements for them before they can import into the US.
And
It could
just to,
increase the amount of bonds that they have to buy.
just to cover off that bonding piece, the bonding amount is you pay a bond fee kind of in case you don't pay your duties. Is that how that works?
That's correct. So it's in order to import a formal entry in the US, typically the customs clears the entry and then it doesn't liquidate the entry for 314 days after it liquidates. And then 90 days after that is when it's finally liquidated and customs can no longer change the duty amount. Up until that point, customs has the ability to go back and examine that entry and increase the duty amount or increase whatever it needs to. Or if there's an anti-dumping or countervailing duty on it, they can start imposing that on it retroactively, even without the knowledge of the importer. So there originally, there could be more duties put on a import down the road. So you're expected to make a cash deposit, a timely cash deposit, and then you're also expected to buy a bond in case customs wants to change the amount of cash deposit that you put on the
Okay.
bond. Because when at the time of importation, you only deposit estimated duties. It's not totally fixed in the amount of the duties until about 394 days after
Okay.
importation.
So let's go back to the requirements themselves. There's something in there called good standing. Can
Right.
we unpack that a little bit? What does that mean? Seems a bit subjective, but maybe you can expand on that for us.
Right. So good standing typically now means you have all your customs bills paid.
Okay.
If you don't pay your customs bill, if you get a customs bill, typically you have 90 days to pay it. And usually the customs bills will be a bill that is in addition to or one that's not paid at the time of importation. And then you have to go ahead and pay an additional amount or it never got paid. And then you'll get a customs bill and customs will demand, or it could be just an error. And customs will demand usually within 90 days that you pay. If you don't pay or file a protest or a complaint about that amount of money, or a petition to get relief from that bill, then customs will put you on what's called a sanctions list. And in which case that you can no longer import the US, or if you import into the US, you have to pay cash up front, like for your estimated duties. So everything has to be paid in advance before you can import. Your bond is held, and then they go after your bond company if you go out of business.
Yeah. And is there any changes on that? So it sounds like it's similar to a good credit rating, basically. What's the changes to that good standing piece?
It looks like they're gonna make it more stringent to stay in good standing. Right now,
Okay.
the current level is, you just have to make sure that you pay your bills to customs on time within, like I said, usually a 90-day. Usually you might get some more time after that to pay. As long as you pay it or work it out with customs, you can pretty much keep importing into the US. It looks like at this point though that they're adding more things to this good standing requirement, and we're not quite sure because the specifics aren't totally listed out what it's going to be, but it looks like they're going to add more things like compliance with all the laws, paying all your bills on time, and not having any difficulties with not having errors on your entry. And who knows, maybe they'll be able to take away an importer's good standing for a much lower bar in the future. But we don't know the specifics, but they seem to be
Remains to be
indicating that
seen.
they might want to be able to take away an importer's good standing at a lower
Okay.
bar.
And so that's all what's changing. What's the actual practicality of someone, let's say I'm importing into the US right now. What's the practicality? What does this mean for me? What do I need to do?
It doesn't seem like it's going to mean anything immediately, but we have to watch out for the rules. We want to probably make sure we have get ready that when the time comes that the extra documents are going to be required, that we have documents. make sure you have documents of how you filed for your LLC or for your corporation at the ready, and give it to your customs compliance department. Make sure you have a list of who the actual owners are and you're ready to give that. I know a lot of companies don't like giving that. There's a lot of when they required companies to provide their EIN number some 40 years ago, there was a lot of pushback then. You might have the same kind of issues now. So people who don't want to give this very highly sensitive information over to their customs broker or the customs officer, might find themselves not being able to import. And they're
Okay.
going to have to understand that, yeah, they're going to get looked over. So we
Okay.
want to make sure that they have all that ready. And,
So
making sure
essentially,
you have good credit rating and everything.
it sounds like there's going to be a lot more documentation and admin required on your end as an importer, which obviously could increase your just general load, workload when you're setting yourself up as an importer. When does it all take effect, or if it is going to take effect, what's kind of the timeline that we're looking at?
Well, for the importer of record requirements and the foreign importer requirements and the good standing requirements, the order is giving customs 180 days to come up with proposed rulings. So we just have to watch out to see what the proposed rules are going to be over the next
Okay.
180 days. And
Yep.
then, usually there's it's required for proposed rulemaking that they come up with the rules, they propose the rules, that they ask for comments. Usually there's a 30-day comment period. And then after the comment period, usually there's a hearing. And usually it's required by the Administrative Procedure Act of 1947 that we go through some kind of system where we have hear from the public, have comments, and then customs has to be able to address each of the comments before it comes up with the rule.
Okay.
If customs and this government go through all the hoops with creating a rule, of having a hearing, you know, confer- consultations with importers, and then analyze all the letters, and then come up with a rule after that. Then usually, well, it used to be given Chevron deference in the courts as far as upholdability with the law. Now, I think they're trying to get rid of that, but usually the rules then are pretty much set in stone-ish with customs. They can't really be challenged too much in court after that as
Right.
being constitutional or against the law.
So really, we're looking minimum 6 months before anything really kicks off. Then after that, there's a review process. And I imagine once the rules or proposed changes are finalized, there'll be some kind of grace period before they actually take effect. So we're looking 6 months to somewhere between 6 months and a year, I would imagine.
I would think within 6 months we'll start seeing these rules being promulgated. We should be seeing we should within probably the next 3 months we should probably starting to see the skeleton of this process playing out, and we should actually know
Awesome.
what they're planning on.
Beautiful.
Probably within 6 months, these rules might, within 6 months to 9 months, these rules might actually be in place.
Okay. Gotcha. Gotcha.
Government can work
That's good
fast
to
when it
know.
wants to.
All right. And I think that covers everything. Is there anything perhaps that you think people watching this should know that we haven't covered so far?
Well, there's also another rule that came out with the certificates of compliance, and this is within 90 days. Customs is going to start requiring that we provide the export declarations to customs to confirm that the same thing being declared that being exported is the same thing being imported, especially
Okay.
value wise. They feel like, a lot of people are especially with these last round of tariffs, they feel that maybe a lot of foreign importers, especially a lot of other importers, are low valuing their product to avoid duties, and so they want to be able to verify that. And so they figure that they should, if they look at the export declarations, they'll be able to see right away if they're telling their own government that something is such and such value, and they're telling the U.S. government it's something different. They're going to be able to catch those people right away. So
Right.
that's going to come out within 90 days.
Right. So that will require people to provide their certificate of compliance when they import something as well. Is that what you're saying?
Well, it'll require them to report their export declarations with their own government,
Okay.
and then
Okay.
provide a
Gotcha.
certificate of that upon
Okay.
importation.
Gotcha. So within the next, that's
90
very
days.
soon, isn't it?
Yeah.
Very soon. All right. Well, that is everything for now. Appreciate you taking the time, Lowell. Your insights are Very thorough as always. You're a wealth of knowledge on this topic, so thank you. For those that are watching this, if you do have any questions, please feel free to reach out to your Navia team member, and we are more than happy to help you with any questions on this topic, as it can be quite detailed and there's a lot of obviously confusion that can come about when it comes to customs. So thanks, Lowell. Appreciate your time, and we will see you next time.
Thank you, Greg. I'm glad that people, hopefully they'll listen and we can start preparing for these changes. All right. Thank you.
See ya.
Bye.